The air was sharp and cold, each breath a thin cloud that dissolved into the crystalline stillness. The path ahead was buried under layers of fresh snow, unbroken and pristine. The canyon was a silent white labyrinth, and I reveled in the solitude, the isolation. The crunch of my boots was the only sound, rhythmic and steady. Then, just as I crested a ridge, the wind shifted, carrying something faint, too faint to trust my ears. I stopped, listening. Nothing. Just the wind's mournful whistle threading through the canyon walls. I pressed on, feeling the weight of the pack against my back, the chill seeping through my gloves. A distant sound returned, louder this time. It was my voice. "Help me." The words echoed faintly, bouncing off the icy walls. My legs locked mid-step, and I spun around. The trail behind me was empty. Logic overrode panic. Sound traveled oddly in canyons, didn't it? Maybe I had shouted something earlier and forgotten, but I knew I hadn't spoken. The voice had been too desperate, too raw a mistake for a casual yell. I kept walking, each step heavier than the last. The snow seemed deeper now, slowing my pace. The path narrowed and jagged cliffs rose on either side, framing a sky that felt impossibly far away. Again, my voice called out, louder, closer. "Help me." It came from ahead this time, as though someone was trapped just around the bend. Against every instinct, I quickened my pace, heart hammering. The canyon turned sharply, revealing nothing but more snow and rock. My voice echoed again, but this time the plea was fractured, overlapping itself in unnatural layers. It came from all directions, an eerie symphony of my own terror. The wind kicked up, swirling the snow into spectral shapes. Shadows played tricks on my eyes, suggesting movement where there was none. The ground felt unsteady beneath my boots, like stepping on a frozen lake. The voice returned, louder, more insistent. "Help me." This time it was right beside me. I twisted around, searching. There was no one there, just my shadow stretching impossibly long against the pale snow, as though lit by an unseen light. Then I saw it. Faint imprints in the snow leading away from me. They were my boot prints but reversed, as if I had walked backward. They led to a narrow crevice in the canyon wall, a crack barely wide enough for a person. The voice whispered again, soft and pleading. "Help me." The crevice seemed to breathe, exhaling cold air tinged with a metallic bite. My instincts screamed to turn back, but the voice pulled at me, tugging at some primal need to confront the impossible. I squeezed into the narrow space, my breath frosting the jagged rock. The tunnel twisted and descended, the walls growing tighter and darker. My flashlight flickered, casting fleeting glances of frost-covered stone. The voice was no longer outside, but within, resonating in my skull. "Help me." It sounded weaker now, as if the source was fading. The passage opened into a cavern, the walls glittering with ice. In the center stood a figure, hunched and shrouded in shadow. My flashlight illuminated its face. My face. I stumbled back, dropping the light. The figure mimicked my movements, its expression a perfect mirror of my own. Except its eyes weren't eyes at all. They were empty, hollow, radiating a cold that seemed to pierce my soul. The figure raised a hand and I felt a pull, as if the air itself was being drawn from my lungs. It whispered, "Help me." But its lips didn't move. The words echoed from the cavern walls, overlapping, twisting, becoming something monstrous. I bolted, the tunnel closing in around me. The echoes followed, warping into laughter, shrieks, and sobs. The ground seemed to shift, tilting beneath my feet. I slipped, skidding down an icy slope, the walls rushing past in a blur. The cavern was alive, trying to swallow me whole. The slope ended abruptly and I tumbled into blinding light. The snowstorm had returned, obscuring the canyon in white chaos. I was outside, back in the open, but the echoes lingered, faint and taunting. My voice cried out again, distant now, fading into the storm. I ran, not caring where, just away. My breath burned in my chest, my legs numb from the cold. The canyon began to widen, the cliffs shrinking into rolling hills. The storm eased, revealing the familiar outline of the trailhead. Relief washed over me, warm and sudden. I reached my car, fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life, the heater blasting a welcome wave of warmth. The echoes were gone, the canyon silent once more. As I drove away, the rearview mirror reflected the white expanse shrinking into the distance. But then I saw it. My shadow, impossibly long, stretching out behind the car, waving goodbye.